The majority of Gen Z nowadays prefers to stay at home rather than go out. Now, why is that? Probably the biggest reason for most people in the first place is to get laid and have fun, which is cool, right? When you're in your early 20s, it's fine to look for a hookup. But trust me when I say this, when you're in your late 20s, your priorities start to shift a little bit. Hookups are cool and all, but the thing is, they are a form of relationship that is not very fulfilling. It's kind of like, imagine you're born in a rich family, but your dad is Epstein. So the thing is, our goals are kind of different as an adult. We no longer look for fun. Now we're looking for a wife, bro. And so a big part of the reason why people are not going out nowadays, and especially the older guys, is because you're probably not very likely to find yourself a wife in those kinds of places. But hey, fuck it. Where do you want to go out? Well, so you have a bunch of options, right? You have clubs, you have the bar, and that's about it, right? Because where else are you going to go? To a park? So let's walk you through the clubbing experience, right? And I'm also speaking from my own perspective, right? As a guy. Because as a girl, that's a completely different experience altogether. But we'll get to that later. So why does it feel like ass? So we're going to start off from getting yourself to build up the confidence to actually go out, you know? That's where we have to start as an introvert. So let's actually imagine we're getting over that barrier and we have gone out there, okay? So you arrive at the club, right? The first thing you do is you do not walk into the club, but instead you go to a shop to buy some alcohol to get yourself fucked up on the street. Now, why do this? If you didn't do this, right, you would end up spending the money on the alcohol inside. And the thing is, the alcohol at the club is a lot more expensive than what you would get at the shop nearby. But the trick is, you have to get yourself fucked up enough to not look like you're drunk as fuck. So you kind of just get yourself drunk enough, and that's when you go to the club, okay? This is just gonna take you the first step, right? Before you even go in. All right, so now you're going in. And so the first thing you see when you go in is they're gonna be charging your ass. Now at that point, it's like, okay, dude, if you're gonna get yourself a good service, right, at the club, it's fine if you're gonna get, have to pay, right? And so the thing is, right, imagine you're going into the restaurant, yeah? And so at the restaurant, when you sit there, your ass is getting a good service most of the time, and you pay for the food, right? But on top of that food, you also pay for the service at the restaurant. But at the club, you're going in there, and you pay for the entrance fee as a guy, right? But we'll get into that. And so your ass does not get any sort of service at all. But guess what? If you're a girl, I suppose that depends on the place, right? But most places, your entry is free. So now you're gonna ask yourself, why are girls incentivized to go to these places, but guys are not? So now you pay to go in, right? You go in there, and the music is blasting. You cannot hear shit but the music playing. And so as an introvert, right, the first thing you wanna do is actually find somebody you can talk to. And so how the fuck are you supposed to talk to somebody if the music is literally blasting your ears, right? It's like, imagine you're going to an Indian restaurant and you're trying to buy Italian food. That's basically the experience of going to a club as an introvert. So you're clueless, right? What do you do? Well, you do the exact same thing that everybody else is doing, right? Which is that you go out there into the room and you start having an aneurysm. It's kind of like, imagine your dad is a schizo and he asks you where his belt is so he can beat the shit out of you. And so you're gonna find yourself there, not speaking to anybody, not interacting with anybody, unless you're I don't know, super attractive, right? But most of us are not. Then you're just gonna be miserable. It's actually shit. But I can imagine as a girl, right? You go in there for free with your friends or whatever. And if you just want a drink, you get a discount on a drink as well. So you just hit those drinks, dance together with your girls or something. But I have to imagine it's a totally different experience, right? So as a guy, to sum this up, right? Imagine getting kicked in the balls 100 times. This is basically kind of similar to this. And so let's imagine here for a second that you're actually getting a chance to approach somebody in this setting, right? But the thing is, with those kind of gatherings, you're 90% more likely to meet somebody outside shit-faced than you are to meet somebody inside, right? So let's imagine you're getting this little chance, right? Again, 90%, right, of the time this is not going to happen. But imagine it did. That's where I can actually have a conversation and have fun, right? But the thing is, you're in the wrong place to begin with. This is just not the place to be in. No matter what goal you have in mind to go there, I feel like realistically, you're more likely to gain nothing out of this. Yeah, you're more likely to get nothing out of this, right? Like you're just not gonna hit that goal. So going out sucks. But then you've got your other option, which is to go out there and drink. But drinking also sucks. The thing is, I feel like people are not drinking anymore. So I have an uncle that has met my aunt through a bar, right? So it's not like it doesn't happen. But I feel like the chances of that happening are pretty low. Like, do you really believe that your future wife is actually getting herself out there into a bar and drinking? Like, I feel like you're just not gonna meet that person at the bar, you know what I mean? But that kind of brings me to the next point, which is that there's just nowhere to meet that person, you know what I mean? Where are the third places at, man? Where are you supposed to meet people nowadays? Are you supposed to go to a fucking library or a park? So the reason people are not drinking anymore, I feel like, is because most of them, well, there's a few reasons, right? But like, one of the most important reasons, people focus on their health more nowadays, which is a good thing. So when you are young, you're able to take drinks like it's nothing. One drink can spiral into 10 in no time, right? And the next day you just drink some water, you're good. But as an adult, you are kinda cooked. You wake up the next day feeling like shit, and your entire day is ruined. And the reality of the situation is that nobody wants their entire day to be gone in seconds, right? In your early 20s, right? When you're a bit younger, it's like you don't give a fuck, right? You just want to have some fun. So you go out there on a weekend and you're chilling. But as an adult, when you make the conscious decision to have some fun during a weekend, the last thing you want to have is the next day to be completely ass. Because let's face it, right? Time is limited. None of us has time anymore. We're all busy. We work. And so when you get some of that free time during the weekend, which by the way is insane that we're only getting fucking 2 days a week of free time. But anyway, when you get that free weekend, you're going to be really conscious as to what you want to do there, right? So for the most part, you just want to do something with your family or unwind, take some fucking more sleep, right? During the day, play some games, just chill, right? Maybe even like start building something, right? So that you're focusing on your growth. Drinking no longer makes sense, man, as an adult. Yeah, you want to focus on yourself. But the other thing is that, again, people are taking more care of themselves in regards to like health, right? So we're all eating healthier. We're going to the gym, taking care of ourselves. Alcohol is not exactly the most healthiest thing you can consume, right? Socializing nowadays no longer makes any sense. Because all of the older generation socializing methods just got patched. Drinking, going out, clubbing, going to bars. This shit just doesn't work anymore in our modern society, I feel like. Being by yourself sucks. The reality of living on this planet is that no matter what you do, doing it in groups makes things 1,000 times more entertaining and interesting. Because as species, we're just wired that way. So the worst thing that can happen is just isolating yourself. You know, growing up as a kid, with role models such as Sasuke from Naruto, I've always found doing things alone by yourself cool. Looking back at it though, it was the dumbest shit ever. Yeah, there was a time in the past where I personally thought doing stuff just for myself is good enough. And there's like nothing wrong with that, right? But personally, the turn point for me was actually sharing stuff with other people. Because it's just significantly more fun that way. And also spending time with people is just fun. I remember back in the day when I was in college, we would have these house parties where you go to a homie's house, you know, bring some alcohol and just drink yourself to death. And I think looking back at that experience, I wish I had more of those. Because like throughout the college, I feel like I went to maybe 2 or 3. But again, looking back at it, right? I was always that kid who used to always be broke. You know what I mean? But it's like not necessarily you're broke because of the amount of money you have. But it's just that the mentality you had at the time, you know? Where you just don't want to spend the money you have, right? When you're treated as if it's like some kind of sacred resource. But now I realize spending money on experiences is like actually probably the fucking meaning of life, dude. Because it's allowing you to grow as a person, right? And spending money on things is also fine, right? A present or something for somebody. But I feel like just like being able to spend money and get that experience is goated. Roughly a year ago, I went on a trip to Japan, and it was probably the best decision I've made in my life. Think Chris Broad shit, right? Like the Abroad in Japan guy from YouTube. I did like a little journey throughout Japan, going west from Tokyo. And I was able to make so many memories. I got to see so many things and eat so much food and meet some amazing people as well. So if you compare that money spent on that trip alone to a purchase I could have made with that same amount of money, it was just so much more worth it in my opinion. Because like what could I possibly have gotten with that amount of money, right? If you asked me today, if I'd rather have that money back and spend it on that thing today, like I don't think there is a reality where I would not take that trip again.